The United States and other like-minded nations find themselves directly opposed by a regime with contrary aims and a totally different concept of life. That regime adheres to a false philosophy which purports to offer freedom, security, and greater opportunity to mankind. Misled by that philosophy, many peoples have sacrificed their liberties, only to learn to their sorrow that deceit and mockery, poverty and tyranny are their reward. That false philosophy is communism.
It's time for Radical Truth with Tony Gurley.
Do you get scared just thinking about sharing your faith, or do you boldly share it all the time? Well, maybe you're someone who falls in between those two camps, and this episode, as well as all the other episodes in the series, are to better equip you to share the gospel with people around you. Regardless of your current level of confidence or evangelism experience, I guarantee you will learn something new, at least one thing, if not many things, in this series that will build your confidence and equip and encourage you to share the gospel with those around you. Now, if you missed part 1A of this training, please go and watch or listen to it now before we come back to this one. As I had mentioned in the first episode, every single episode builds on the one before it. So I am assuming that you watched or heard everything before this one, and it's going to continue that way as we go on. Again, 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, 4A, 4B is an 8-episode series, which is actually 4 one-hour sessions that are given in a one-day training at a church, or it's given one session a week, depending on what other churches want. So, again, this is our general evangelism and basic apologetics training available for churches everywhere. And of course, this is in addition to our 20-hour training on apologetics to Islam, and of course, the different presentations I've made to present at political groups and political events like Lights Out When Islam Rules America, the Muslim Brotherhood, and Unveiling the Facts of Sharia. So now, in the first session, we talked about evangelism in the life of Christ. We talked about gospel tracts, at least a little bit, just started to, and I shared how I personally received a gospel tract from a complete stranger. I don't remember what the man looked like, but I do know one thing for sure: God worked with the seed that man planted. Jesus isn't going to say, "Well done, good and successful servant." He's going to say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Are you being faithful and getting the gospel out there? Because gospel tracts is the easiest way to share the gospel. Because guess what? You don't need to say anything to anyone. So you shouldn't just take my word for it that gospel tracts actually work. George Whitefield, who lived from 1714 to 1770, probably the greatest open-air preacher after the Apostle Paul, was saved after reading a gospel tract. Charles Spurgeon, who lived from 1834 to 1892, who is widely known as the Prince of Preachers, he said this: "Let each one of us, if we've done nothing for Christ, begin to do something now. The distribution of gospel tracts is the first thing." He also said, when preaching and private talk are not available, you need to have a tract ready. Get good, striking tracts or none at all. But a touching gospel tract may be the seed of eternal life. Therefore, do not go out without your tracts. He also said, there's a real service of Christ in the distribution of the gospel in its printed form. A service, the result of which heaven alone shall disclose, and the judgment day alone discover. How many thousands have been carried to heaven instrumentally upon the wings of these tracts, none can tell. Here's a testimony for you. A young 17-year-old read a gospel tract entitled The Finished Work of Christ. After reading the tract, that young man became a Christian, and then he went on to faithfully serve his Savior for many years in China. Now, can you guess who that man was? It was Hudson Taylor, the founder of the China Inland Mission, and at his death, it included 205 mission stations, 800 missionaries, and 125,000 Chinese Christians. And how did it all start, folks? with a gospel tract that Hudson Taylor found and read. So why should you use tracts? Here are 6 reasons why. Number 1, they can work while you sleep. Number 2, they never compromise their message. They just say what needs to be said. 3, they can go places where you cannot. Folks, if you just leave a tract somewhere and someone picks it up, you don't know where they're going to go, but it's definitely someplace that you're not going. Or even if you give someone a tract personally and say a few words, which we're eventually going to get to, that's baby step number 2. Again, that tract can go places where you cannot. They are never afraid or show cowardice, like many times we can if we don't feel confident in doing evangelism. They never get tired, discouraged, or they don't ever give up. Also, they can present the message when you don't have time. Folks, when you go to a grocery store and you're in line and you have 5 or more people behind you, you don't have an hour to talk with that cashier to get to the gospel and all of that. But you can easily leave them or hand them a gospel tract. Now, a quick example here. Say you're at Walmart. You got a bunch of people in line behind you. You're just making small talk with the cashier. Say, hey, you're doing a great job. Here's something for you to read when you go on break. Just saying that and giving them a gospel tract. And there are a ton of gospel tracts that you could use. They aren't all the same. But how easy is that? I mean, you're the one customer that day who actually gave the employee something other than your credit card just to swipe and give back to you. So you're going to stand out just because of that. So it's so easy, folks, to get the gospel out there on a mass scale. As Jesus said, the harvest is plentiful, the laborers are few. Now, where should you leave gospel tracts? Because again, handing it to someone is the next step. It should be even easier and less intimidating to just simply leave them. So where can we leave gospel tracts? The better question is, where should you not leave gospel tracts? As you can read here in this list, elevators, rental DVDs or games, return library books, driver's side of car windows, magazine and newspaper racks, dressing rooms and clothing stores, ATM machines, bank deposit slip areas, shopping carts, multi-pack items at the store. I actually knew of a guy back in the day who would go down the beer aisle and put a gospel tract in all the beer cases as you walk down there. Also with a generous tip in menus or napkin holders. Now, it says generous here in capital red letters. Why is that? Folks, you won't believe this picture here. This is a merchant copy of a receipt at a restaurant. The customer wrote, I give God 10%. Why do you get 18? Then he actually put pastor before his name, a 0 for the tip. Now, if you are a non-Christian waiter or waitress who's watching or listening to this, I am sorry if this happened to you. We as Christians should be giving bigger tips than the non-Christians out there. And also to the Christians out there who are watching or listening to this, again, give a generous tip along with the gospel. Now, here's another bad example. You have this ketchup bottle and it looks like $20 underneath there, right? Oh, but guess what? You open that up, it says, don't be fooled. There's something you can have more valuable than money. So this is a fake $20 bill, and it's pretty much a gospel tract. At the same time, this one here, they left 2 gospel tracts, $1 million bill money tract, along with 53 cents, and then another gospel tract in addition to that. Folks, it would be great to never see things like this ever again. Again, as you see here, second from the bottom, a generous tip. Give the biggest tip that you've ever given and give the gospel with it, if that is going to be a way that you get the gospel out there. And last here, it says inside religious, quote unquote, or popular books in the bookstore. Also, there's a number of other things you can do too. You know, you go to garage sales or someone comes to your garage sale, yeah, you give out tracts. If you're going through a drive-through, give a tract to the person who takes your money or the person who gives you your food. Another great thing to do is get some gift cards to different restaurants in your area. And if you see homeless people around who are asking for money, begging for change, whatever, ask them if they're hungry. And if they say yes, then give them a gift card to a local place to get food and give them the gospel as well. Give them a tract. Now, this is the credit card slot at a gas pump. Now, this is the before picture, and this is the after picture. The person put a gospel tract in the credit card slot. So the next person who comes to get gas has to pull the gospel tract out to put their credit card in. So the moral of the story here is be creative in where you want to leave tracts. Giving you that list just a few minutes ago was just a list of examples of places where you can leave them, but be creative. Leave them where people will find them.
Radical Truth is available to help your church, group, or organization. Whether it's evangelism, apologetics, or Islam, we're available for church sermons, individual talks, weekend seminars, and in-depth training courses. Educate and equip your church with high-quality visual sermon presentations such as What is Islam? Who is Allah? And What is the Christian Response? Or Islam and the Last Days. Want a crash course on evangelism tactics that will greatly boost people's confidence and enthusiasm to share the gospel with others? Simple steps to share the gospel will do just that. Want us to challenge your group first and then provide follow-up training? The Atheist Challenge and the Muslim Challenge are great ways to help them realize the benefit of apologetics. Last but not least, our 20-hour Apologetics to Islam training series will educate and equip your group to confidently engage Muslims with the gospel, defend the Christian faith, and answer your most common objections. Visit radicaltruth.net to inquire about booking your event. Again, that's radicaltruth.net.
Now, how many of you take advantage of National Evangelism Day? But, okay, let me help you out here. It's actually better known as Halloween, because what other day of the year do you have perhaps hundreds of people coming to your house expecting to get something from you? So rather than say, oh, we don't do Halloween because we're Christians, why don't you redeem that day that so many non-Christians take part in, have candy, but guess what? Have a ton of gospel tracts. Maybe have Halloween-themed gospel tracts. We have Stormtrooper $1 million bills. We have Halloween $1 million bills. We have Spanish $1 million bills. But that is a day when a ton of people come to you. So take advantage of it. Also, what happens the day after Thanksgiving? You have Black Friday. You have hundreds of people standing in line to buy things they don't need with money they don't have. And this is happening throughout the United States. Black Friday sales gives you a long line of people who have a ton of time waiting to get in to buy stuff. So put on a Santa hat if you want, have a bunch of Christmas-themed gospel tracts, walk down the line of people, hey, Merry Christmas, what are you going to buy, what are you waiting for, etc., whatever you want to say, and you can easily give out hundreds of gospel tracts in less than 30 minutes. Again, Black Friday sales. And folks, Thanksgiving to Christmas is the longest holiday tract season of the year. Day after Thanksgiving, all the way through Christmas, basically you have a month there of being able to give out Christmas-themed tracts. And how easy should it be to simply say Merry Christmas if you're in a store and paying for your items or wherever you are. Just tell people Merry Christmas and give them a Christmas-themed tract. Now here we have a Santa $1 million bill. We have a cartoon Santa $1 million bill. And one of my favorites here, we have Which List Are You On? And it has a picture of Santa holding up a list and has a big red bulb. And it says, place your thumb on the red bulb and leave it there for 5 seconds. If you've been good, the red will fade. Now, of course, it never fades, right? People turn it over and it says, sorry, you're just like the rest of us. The dictionary says good is to be morally excellent. Let's check the standard, the 10 Commandments. And what does it do? It takes them through the 10 Commandments and uses it as a mirror so that they realize, man, I've broken these. They personally realize, maybe for the first time in their life, why they're a sinner. They actually know what sin is, and the tract does all the talking for you. Now, one time, it was a number of years ago, I was in a grocery store and they had one of those red boxes, and it was, I think, a few months before that I'd actually found a red box promo code. I took a picture of it, threw the card in the trash, and I still had the picture of it on my phone. So I was walking out, I saw these two teenagers at the red box, and I just said, hey guys, what movie are you going to get? And they just started talking about different movies that they were looking through. And I said, well, hey, we'll try and see if this works. And I pulled out the phone. I got the promo code. They typed in the promo code. All of a sudden, their balance went to 0. And it's like, whoa, thanks. And I said, "You're welcome. Merry Christmas." And I gave them a Christmas-themed gospel tract. I did a nice thing, and I shared the gospel with them. And folks, this is so important. This is such an important point that I always make. There's a huge difference between doing something nice or doing something loving and actually sharing the gospel. And unfortunately, many people conflate the two. Folks, the gospel is news. It requires words, okay? Unless you are fluent in sign language, you cannot share the gospel by your actions, quote unquote. So do nice things, but make sure you include the gospel with it and don't conflate the two. They're two completely distinct things. And here's a perfect example right here. Look at this. Somebody got the movie War Room, which is a great movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But look at this. They put a $5 bill in with it. This is at a Red Box. They put a $5 bill in there, and there's a little note that says, "Enjoy some snacks on us. Blessings." Now, that is really cool, and I'm sure there's many of you out there who are thinking, hey, that never happened to me. But folks, how easy would it have been to put a gospel tract in there with that $5 bill and with that note? So again, perfect example here of doing a nice thing, a loving thing, and missing out on sharing the gospel with it, or being sure to share the gospel with it. Now, a lot of places to leave tracts, but the next step after that is actually a little bit tougher, or maybe a little bit more intimidating. But where's the best place to put a gospel tract? In a person's hand. That is always the best place to put a tract, and most importantly, always have tracts ready, or you'll regret it forever. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're someone who already does pass out tracts or leave tracts, if you are talking with someone and all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, I should give them a gospel tract, or I want to give a gospel tract to follow up this conversation once we get to that point, and then you don't have any on you, you're kicking yourself thinking, man, I need to have them on me. And that's exactly why I want to give you this list of places to keep tracts. Number one, your car. Have them in the glove box, or have them in the console, or in the side, the door area, but have them ready to grab and to give out. Put tracts in your wallet. Ladies, make sure you put tracts in your purse. Sometimes, hey, you can put tracts in your shirt pocket. Guys who usually have shirts with the pockets, if you take a stack of $1 million bills, stick them in your pocket, and just go about your day, okay, go run your errands, and I guarantee you, people, when you start talking with them, are going to be looking at you, and they're going to start looking down at your pocket, thinking, and they're probably going to say, is that real money? And you can just simply say, oh no, they're gospel tracts. Did you get one yet? And that's the specific words you want to ask. Did you get one? Because guess what? If I ask, do you want one? You could say, well, no. Well, what am I going to say? That's you always want to ask, did you get one? So if you say no to that, I'm going to say, well, this is for you. Or this one's for you then. But shirt pocket is a great place to put them, and they'll be very easy. It's a good reminder for you too. Oh, I need to give these out. Now, also, if you have a Apple, iPhone, iPod, I'm not sure if this is available for Android. It might be, I'm not sure. But this is a 99-cent app called Tract Printer. And with it, this is what you can do. Is that cool or what? I mean, that will impress someone. I've impressed people that I've done that with, and they're kind of just blown away, like, oh, wow, how'd you do that? But you're giving them a gospel tract, so a really cool way to give out tracts. Now, one time, I was going to a Civil War reenactment, and I was like, wait a second, Civil War, Abe Lincoln, hey, that's perfect. So I grabbed the stack of 300 or 400 Abe Lincoln $1 trillion bills, and I went around giving them out, saying, hey, thanks for your, all the people dressed up in Civil War stuff. I was like, hey, thanks for your service, or hey, you're doing a great job, or whatever else. And people loved them because we're at the Civil War reenactment, and it's got Abe Lincoln on these gospel tracts. So I'm giving out tons of them, and all of a sudden I hear that in a little bit, Abe Lincoln, quote unquote, is going to be speaking at the White House. So a bunch of people started to gather at this White House building, and I'm like looking around like, okay, I mean, how easy is this going to be to give out a ton of these tracts? So he gave the Gettysburg Address, and as soon as he was done, I said, hey, did you get your Abe Lincoln trillion? Get your Abe Lincoln trillion? I'm giving them out, And one after another, people are actually running to come get them. People are asking, hey, can I get another one to give to my friend or my mom or whoever else? Folks, I gave out hundreds of Abe Lincoln gospel tracts in less than 20 minutes. And then this line of people formed who wanted to take their picture with Abe Lincoln. So I went down the line and said, hey, you get your Abe Lincoln trillion, giving him out left and right to everybody. And at the very end, I gave one to Abe Lincoln, quote unquote, and I took a picture with him as well. So the main thing here, folks, is always have tracts ready. If you don't have them ready, it's going to be very hard to leave tracts or to give a tract and just to say a few words with it. So folks, we need to just be reaching out to people everywhere and sharing the gospel. However, there are many celebrities who have received gospel tracts as well, and that is really cool because, hey, if a celebrity repents and puts their trust in Jesus Christ and becomes a Christian, they can then use that platform that they have to reach people with the gospel for God's glory as well. So this video here has a list of celebrities who have received gospel tracts, and for the sake of the podcast listeners, I will read these names for you. Celebrities get a gospel tract. Bill Nye, Bill O'Reilly, Bo Bice, Holly Hunter, Vice President Joe Biden, Jimmy Johnson, John Travolta, Manny Pacquiao, Magic Johnson, Penn Jillette, Ruben Studdard, Ted Cruz, others who received our tracts. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Annette Bening, Brad Pitt, Cuba Gooding Jr., DJ Qualls, Ed Harris, Freddie Prinze Jr., Gwen Stefani, Harrison Ford, James Woods, Joe Jonas, Kiefer Sutherland, Macklemore, Michael Douglas, Richie Sambora, Steve-O, Steven Spielberg, President Barack Obama. Okay. That moves pretty quick. That is a video from Living Waters that has a list of celebrities who have received their gospel tracts. Now here as well, this is a picture, and for privacy purposes, I put a orange box on the non-celebrity here. But many of you who have seen the Jackass movies or just for whatever reason know who Wee Man is. This is a picture of Wee Man receiving a $1 trillion bill gospel tract from a guy who actually went through my evangelism training and then sent me this picture saying, hey, look who I saw, and gave a tract to. And of course, I sent this on to Ray Comfort and Living Waters, and they loved it as well. So even though it's great to share the gospel with a celebrity, because again, God could use that celebrity in their platform for his glory, we also want to just share the gospel with the average, everyday person. And this video is about that.
So I just hand them one of these.
It's the easiest way to share the gospel.
You do this every week?
Yeah.
All right. Heavenly Father, I just pray that you guide us when we go out and share your gospel tonight, Lord.
I was born in a Christian family. We went to church, and everything was fine and dandy in my life until something happened to me and my family when I was in high school that completely shattered my faith in God and turned my life upside down.
An atheist conversion.
Dad wanted to open up a business with his best friend. My dad's best friend ended up being deceitful about certain parts of the business deal. It went sour, and we went from being well off financially to basically having absolutely nothing in the bank account in a matter of days. To make things worse, my dad began to behave really strangely. And the psychiatrist at the time diagnosed him with a disease called delusional schizophrenia. We checked in my dad to a psychiatric hospital. And so when I didn't see God healing my dad, when I didn't see God giving us the finances that we needed, I said, you know what? Everything that I've been taught about God in the Bible is absolutely wrong. And so very quickly, I embraced atheism. So when I went to college, I was in college as an atheist. I embraced evolution. I was partying. And so after a while of going through this, I began to search. For, hey, what's the meaning of life? Why am I here? And what am I supposed to be doing in life? I was watching a movie with my best friend, and we left the movie theater. We saw that there was a group of people. There was one lady that came up to me. She said to me, "Have you received your $1 million today?" And I said, "What?" And she gave me something. It was a piece of paper. I didn't think too much of it, and I just took it and I put it in my pocket. Now, in all honesty, I had planned on waiting just until I was out of view, and I was going to throw that piece of paper in the trash. I didn't really care about what it said. So when I got back home, I was taking out my stuff, and lo and behold, this piece of paper came up. And I began to read it, and it said, "Here is the $1 million question. Will you go to heaven when you die? For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life." And so when I read that, my heart began to pound and I began to get goosebumps. And it was as if my whole life flashed in front of me. I went and I just kneeled beside my bed. Yes, God, please forgive me. I'm so sorry for what I've done. I've done so many wrong things against you. God used living waters in my life to bring me to faith. And he used the $1 million tract specifically to bring me to Christ. This woman that gave me that tract that night, she had no idea how God was going to use it in my life. She had no idea that just a few minutes later, I was going to be in my room, on my knees, crying and asking God to forgive me for all the wrong things that I had done in my life. And now, by the grace of God, I'm able to take that same tract and also bring other people to faith. Truly, God uses it to make a difference and to usher so many more people into his kingdom.
$1 million question. Will you go to heaven when you die? Folks, just as that man received a gospel tract from Living Waters and knows that they work, I personally do as well. Because it was a Living Waters tract that a stranger gave me, and God faithfully worked with that seed. So remember, gospel tracts work, so we should use gospel tracts for God's glory. You can always count the amount of seeds in one apple, but you can never count the amount of apples that will come from one seed. And when you plant a seed for God's glory, you have no idea how the Lord is going to use that for his glory that same day, next week, next month, next year, the next decade, and so on. But it's all for him, and when we faithfully plant seeds for his glory, he will faithfully work with those seeds. Folks, this concludes session 1B of this 8-session training. 1A and 1B is technically the first hour of the 4-hour training that you get when we present it before a live audience at your church. So folks, let's get the gospel out there. Stay tuned and make sure you watch or listen to 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, 4A, and 4B to get this complete 8-session training. We'll see you next time and talk with you next time on Radical Truth.